Communism or capitalism? Which is better? Which would you rather go for? That's the question of the day, and the answer is capitalism. But when I say capitalism, I mean free markets. One of the problems with talking about words and defining things is that there are different definitions, and there can be, and unfortunately, there are bad guys out there co-opting words, their meanings. What do they mean? And a lot of terms become redefined, and it's unfortunate. And that's how the cookie crumbles. And when I say capitalism, I'm not talking about the kind of capitalism that was defined, co-opted by Karl Marx back in the 1800s and other people. But I would emphasize Karl Marx. Wasn't he the founder of communism and socialism? Or let's just not talk about socialism, even though I see similarities and connections with the communism, but it's something I've heard about bits and pieces about these things from Stefan Molyneux and other people, but especially Molyneux. And it's really simple once you understand that competition is crucial, and there's a lot of people out there talking about it. So it's like, make up your mind for anybody who's like on the fence. It's like, what are you waiting for? You want innovation. Hypothetically speaking, we could talk about communism and we could try to define communism or socialism or any of the other things and different hybrids or combinations of these different things. And there are these theories about these things that could that could work. And I don't want to make fun of people too much or whatever. Like I don't want to, but I gotta. I have to say it how it is, and there's no other way to do it, kind of thing. Like how else do you say it? It's like I can try to sympathize and empathize and realize like there may be some people with perhaps some good intention behind some of these ideologies regarding communism, socialism, and possibly some other things, some other isms, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, we live in the real world and these things don't really happen. People don't really do those things. I mean, in a small scale, it's possible, and in a small scale, these things do happen in a good way. There may be some elements, some aspects to socialism, communism, and other things. People share. There's a little bit of collectivism happening, especially like in Asia. I was I was living in Vietnam for 5 years, teaching English, and I see it. It's obvious, and it works, and it can work, and in some ways for them, and because of everything happening in that place, those places in Asia, it can work better. Generally speaking, it could be, and it has been, for thousands of years. It works. But it depends, and it always depends, and a lawyer would tell you that. Like Lionel Nation, he'll tell you that. It depends. It's a good answer. It's a good legal answer. It depends, but it's important to understand that individualism is ultimately better, but some people may not be able to handle it. Perhaps the majority of the people, most of the time, historically speaking, a lot of people have preferred being ruled, and that's what you get with collectivism. Not that you have to, but that has been happening, and communism comes in to co-op elements of collectivism, and people prefer to have a king, to have a ruler, to have a president, kind of thing, and And that's one of the struggles that people have when they're trying to promote anarchy. And anarchy doesn't have to be chaos. And just like with everything else, there's different definitions to these words. We don't have anarchy. We can't really have anarchy. Well, I guess it depends on the kind of definition that you're using. But it's important to promote and encourage people towards anarchy because that is a way, perhaps not the only way, but it's definitely a way to push people towards minimizing government, towards decentralization as opposed to centralization of power and control from federalism and globalism and technocracy, plutocracy. These different kinds of these different kinds of things happen. These different things have been happening for a really long time. What kind of things am I talking about? I'm talking about power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it's a scary thing. It's like a tumor. It's like a force fires, like cancer. It spreads. A lot of bad things can spread. A lot of good things can spread, and it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. But I prefer free markets, and that's what I mean by capitalism. And I want to encourage people towards competition, free markets, decentralization. That's what I love about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. And a lot of great things are happening with the innovation of technology and people all around the world trying to make things work. And there are some elements of communism in some of these things. Perhaps there is some elements of communism in blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing because we're not talking about the entire scope of communism. Because, like, when we talk about communism, it could be good or bad depending on the different elements involved. Because when we're talking about communism, we're talking about a bunch of different things that are included in the bundle, and usually it's a bad thing. Some people who are pro communism will use that as an argument to say, see, communism is a good thing, but you guys are turning into a bad thing because you're talking about these things, but when we're talking about these other things, unfortunately, these other things are coming because you have to understand history, you gotta understand how it works, and a bunch of tyrants are behind the system most of the time. They're behind it, and they're the ones manipulating a lot of things, and they've been doing this in a lot of different countries for thousands of years. Not necessarily the same people, but I wouldn't know. I wouldn't necessarily know. But there have been a limited amount of different people seeking after power and limiting population, and they will promote things like communism and a bunch of other things. Obama was promoting an idea of redistribution of wealth as a Robin Hood idea. Not to slam Robin Hood. I like Robin Hood, but if you go after equality and you want everything to be fair, then you're going against the fabrics of life and the meaning of life, and it's unfortunate because it's fulfilling to struggle in order to succeed because the game of life is rewarding if there is risk involved, and struggle is necessary to build character, and that's why we watch movies and shows and read books that includes fiction and nonfiction stories that have some kind of character arc. I love Star Wars and Star Trek and Lord of the Rings and all sorts of things, and I'm in love with characters that grow, and we grow too. And capitalism is a good environment for some of those things, and I owe my life and I tip my hat to some of these ideas, and some of these things are philosophical and groundbreaking and fundamental to life, and there ain't nothing better. There ain't nothing